Good morning. Today we're working on lesson 9.6, add fractional parts of 10 and 100. And so let's look at our first unlock the problem. We're on page 381. The fourth grade classes are painting designs on tile squares to make a mural. Mrs. Kirk's class painted 3/10 of the mural. Mr. Becker's class painted 21/100ths of the mural. What part of the mural is painted? So we need the 3/10 that Mrs. Kirk's class painted. We need the 21/100ths of the mural that Mr. Becker's class painted. So we know how to add fractions with parts that are the same size. We can use equivalent fractions to add fractions with parts that are not the same size. So I just can't start here and say, okay, we have 24/10ths, 24/100ths. They're different sizes, right? One is in 10th size pieces and one's in 100th size pieces. So we have to make them the same. So we're going to write 3/10ths and 21/100ths as a pair of fractions with a common denominator. So think of 100 is a multiple of 10. Use 100 as the common denominator. So how can we turn 3/10ths into a denominator with 100? By multiplying by 10. So 10 times 10 is 100. 3 times 10 is 30. Okay, so now 30/100ths plus 21/100ths, we can do that, right? Now we have the same size parts. And now how many do we have? We have 51/100ths. So that's how much of the mural has been painted. A little more than half. Okay, so look at the next one. Try this. 4/100ths plus 1/10. Okay, so again, we have different size parts, but we can turn the 10 into 100 by multiplying by 10 over 10. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 1 is 10. So 10/100ths plus 10/100ths is 20. Oh, sorry about that. It should have been 4/100ths. 4/100ths plus 10/100ths is 14/100ths. Okay, so the 10/100ths is from changing 1/10 into hundredths, and then we're just reusing the 4/100ths that we already had. So I just mistakenly wrote 10/100ths twice. So 4/100ths plus 10/100ths gives us 14/100ths. All right, 382. Adding decimals. Sean leaves 5/10 mile from the store. Lives 5/10 mile from the store. The store is 25/100ths mile from his grandmother's house. Sean is going to walk to the store and then to his grandmother's house. How far will he walk? So we're going to write 5/10 and 25/100ths as a sum of fractions. Or we can write them as a sum of fractions. So think of 5/10 as 5/10. Think of 25/100ths as 25/100ths. So we can now write the sum 5/10 plus 25/100ths as a sum of fractions with a common denominator. 5/10 times 10 over 10, 50/100ths. So 50/100ths plus 25/100ths gives us 75/100ths. And now write the sum as a decimal. So 75/100ths as a decimal is 0.75. Find 25 hundredths plus 40 hundredths. Well, 25 hundredths plus 40 hundredths, that would be 65 hundredths. And 65 hundredths is written 0.65, so we have 65 cents. Now there's different ways of adding. There's another method for adding the decimals, and we'll talk about that. Right now we're just practicing changing the decimals back into its fractional form. Number 1, find 7/10 plus 5 1/100. Okay, so again, we have two fractions with different size parts. So the first thing we need to do is make them have the same fractional parts. So 7/10 times 10 over 10 would give me 70 1/100 plus 5 1/100. So 7/10 plus 5 1/100 is 75 1/100. 75 hundredths, not 1/100. 1/10 plus 11 hundredths. So we need to make the 1/10 into hundredths by multiplying by 10. So we get 10 hundredths plus 11 hundredths. 11 plus 10 is 21 hundredths. Number 3. Again, we have different size parts, so we need to make them have common denominators. 5/10 times 10 over 10. That would give us 51 hundredths. Plus 36 hundredths. 50 and 36 is 86 hundredths. Okay. 6 and 0 is 6. So we have 6 ones. 5 tens plus 3 tens is 8 tens. So 86 hundredths. All right. So again, we're practicing just changing these into fractions so we find common denominators. So 16 hundredths of a dollar and 45 hundredths of a dollar. So 45 plus 16. 6 and 5 ones is 11 ones. Regroup as 110 and 1 1. We have 4 and 1 is 5 plus the regrouped is 61. So we have 61 hundredths of a dollar, which would be 0.61. All right, number 5, we have 8 hundredths of a dollar, 8 cents, plus 88 hundredths. Okay, so the size of the parts are the same. 88 plus 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. Regroup to 110. And we have 8/10 plus 110, we have 96. So 96 hundredths is 96 cents. All right, 6/10 plus 25 hundredths. Okay, well, the denominators are not the same, so we have different size parts. So the first thing we need to do is make them into full fractions into hundredths. So 6 times 10 is 60, and 10 times 10 is 100. So 60 hundredths plus 25 hundredths. 60 plus 25. 5 and 0 is 5. 6 and 2 is 8. So 85 hundredths. 7/10 plus 7 hundredths. Multiply 7/10 by 10. So we have 70 hundredths plus 7 hundredths. And that's 77 hundredths. 19 hundredths plus 4 tenths. I need to change the 4 tenths into hundredths by multiplying by 10. 4 times 10 is 40. 10 times 10 is 100. All right, 40 hundredths plus 19 hundredths. 9 and 0 ones is 9. 4 and 1 10 is 5 tenths. So 59 100ths. 59 hundredths. 3 hundredths plus 9 tenths. 9 tenths is not the same size as hundredths, so we need to change the tenths into hundredths. 9 times 10 is 90. So we have 90 hundredths plus 3 hundredths. We know that that's 93 hundredths. Number 10, 55 hundredths plus 23 hundredths. 55 hundredths plus 23 hundredths. 5 and 3 is 8. 5 and 2 is 7. So 78 hundredths. How do we write 78 hundredths as a decimal? Just 0.78. So 78 cents. Number 11, the 1 is in the tenths place, the 9 is in the hundredths place. So 19 hundredths plus 13 hundredths. 19 plus 13. 9 and 3 is 12. Regroup as 110 and 2 ones. And 3 tens is 32. So 32 hundredths as a decimal is 0.32. 32 cents. All right, so what are we doing here? So we're adding these fractions, and it came up with 60 hundredths. So first they had to change the 10 into hundredths. And so they had to multiply something tenths by 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So what did we multiply the 10 tenths by to get 60? Well, we already have 20, right? So 60, take away 20, 40. I need to multiply 10 by something that would give me 40. Isn't that 4? Okay, so let's try that. 20 hundredths plus 40 hundredths. Yes, that's 60 hundredths. So basically what I did was I took 60 hundredths and I took away 20 hundredths. 60 take away 20 is 40 hundredths. So I knew that this had to be a 4 because 4 times 10 is 40. All right, so let's look at number 13. So 2 tenths plus some hundredths is 90 hundredths. All right, so let's change this 2 tenths into hundredths. All right, so 10 tenths times 2 tenths. That would give me 20 hundredths. Plus some value of hundredths equals 90 hundredths. So again, to get this missing box, we can just take the 90 hundredths and subtract one of our add-ins. Okay, so 90 take away 20 is 70 hundredths. All right, so our missing value is 70. Use the table for 14 through 17. Let's look at our table. So the title is Paving Stone Center. And it looks like they've got different types of stones, paving stones, rustic, teak wood, buckskin, rainbow, and rose style pavers. And these are their lengths in meters. 15 hundredths, 3/10, 41 hundredths, 6/10, and 8 hundredths. Okay. So Dean selects teakwood stones and buckskin stones to pave a path in front of his house. How many meters long will each set of one teakwood stone and one buckskin stone be? How many meters long will each set? All right, so the teakwood and the buckskin. So we have to add 3/10 plus 41 hundredths. Well, right now we can't do that because we're adding size of parts that are different. So let's make them the same size parts. So 3/10 times 10 over 10 would give me 30 hundredths plus 41 hundredths. Okay, so now we have the same size parts, and 41 plus 30 is 71 hundredths. So how many meters will it be? It will be 71 hundredths meter. The backyard patio at Nona's house is made from a repeating pattern of one rose stone and one rainbow stone. How many meters long is each pair of stones? Rose stone, rainbow stone. How many meters long is each pair? So the rose stone is 8 hundredths meter, and the rainbow stone is 6/10. Okay, so they have different size parts. So let's turn the 6/10 into hundredths by multiplying by 10/10. All right, so an equivalent fraction for the rainbow stone would be 60 hundredths plus the 8 hundredths of the rose stone. We would get 68 hundredths meter. 16. For a stone path, Emily likes the look of a rustic stone, then a rainbow stone, and then another rustic stone. How long will the 3 stones in a row be? So rustic, rainbow, rustic. How long will the 3 stones be? So a rustic stone is 15 hundredths, and then the rainbow stone is 6/10, followed by another rustic stone. All right, so that's our equation right now. So I'm going to, for the sake of adding this, I'm going to use the commutative property, and I'm going to switch places with the 6/10 and the 15 hundredths. So 15 hundredths plus 15 hundredths plus 6/10. So that's 15 and 15 is 30 hundredths plus 6/10. Now at this point, they're not the same size. So I want to change the 6/10 into hundredths. So we have 60 hundredths plus the 30 hundredths. So we have 90 hundredths meter. And then just explain it. Okay. So adding 15 hundredths plus 15 hundredths is 30 hundredths. 30 hundredths plus 6/10 is the same as saying 30 hundredths plus 60 hundredths, which gives us 90 hundredths. 17. Which 2 stones can you place end to end to get a length of 38 hundredths meters? Explain how you found your answer. 38 hundredths meter. Okay, well, we just kind of combine 2 stones, right? And we have to have a total of 38. So I want to try to start with the ones that are already in the hundredths. So 15 and 41, that's 56. Okay, so that won't work. And then we also have an 8 here. 8 and 41, that's 49. 15 and 8 is 23. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to change these all into hundredths. So it'll just make it easier to add. All right, so I changed 3 tenths into 30 hundredths. I'm going to turn 6 tenths into 60 hundredths. Okay, so now I see 30 plus 8 hundredths. That's our 38 right there. So which 2 stones? So we put teak wood and rose. How did I find the answer? I changed 3 tenths and 6 tenths to hundredths. So all the fractions had same size parts. 30 hundredths plus 8 hundredths equals 38 hundredths. Christelle is making a dollhouse. The dollhouse is 6 tenths meter high without the roof. The roof is 15 hundredths meter high. What is the height of the dollhouse with the roof? Okay, so the dollhouse without is 6 tenths. The roof is 1500. So they're showing us that we need to add those together. That makes sense. Okay, so we have this basic dollhouse, and then we got to put the roof on top, and it wants to know the height of the roof with the height of the dollhouse with the roof. So first thing I need to do is change the 6 tenths into a denominator that matches 100. So we're going to multiply by 10. 6 times 10 is 60 over 100. So we're going to use 60 hundredths plus 15 hundredths. 60 and 15. 5 and 0 is 5. 6 and 1 is 7. So 75 meters. 75 hundredths meter high. Okay, so that's adding tens and hundredths as fractions. In our next lesson, we will be comparing decimals. So until then, may the numbers always be in your favor.